Hey y'all, thank y'all so much for tuning into another episode. It is Jericho, and today I'm going to talk about a very fun and exciting topic today that I feel like I have pretty good experience on. And if you're new to this podcast, a basic premise of it is it's going to cover a wide range of topics, more specifically along the lines of a self-help podcast, but also commentary on like mental health or societal issues. And I strongly believe that raw and exciting conversations are just like the key to unpacking larger, more complicated topics. And I believe that actively learning about new ideas is crucial to just our overall development, psychologically, mentally, spiritually, physically. And basically, my goal with this platform is to just share stories and personal knowledge with you all, in hopes that you gain some type of value from that and can take this practical advice that I give and apply it to your own life. And yeah, I don't have the name for this podcast, but just a disclaimer, I don't have a PhD. I don't have any degrees or anything like that in science or psychology. So everything I talk about is based solely off of personal experience. And yeah, this is basically just a very small passion project of mine that I've been putting off for a long time. And I'm finally putting it out there on the platform for everybody to see. And I just hope to share these personal experiences with a variety of topics and hope that y'all can take some value from it. I did not talk about my week at all. Yeah, this week has been a pretty crazy week, but in a good way because there's a lot of good things are happening for me right now. I don't want to get into specifics because I don't want to bore you all, but scratch that. But yes, I totally forgot to talk about my week today. This week has been a pretty crazy week. I mean, it's only Wednesday, but these past few days have been pretty crazy, in a good way. And I'm just super grateful for where I am right now in my life, and did not expect to be, sitting in the position that I am at this moment. So, just super grateful to God for everything that is happening in my life currently, and trying not to take anything that's happening right now for granted. Also, sorry that I'm glistening. It's currently like 100 degrees out. Like, I'm not even kidding. And it's like 5 o'clock, so the sun should be going down soon, and hopefully it'll cool off. But anyways, now that I got all that out of the way, today I am going to talk about normalizing spending time alone. And what I mean specifically about this, I know it sounds like a pretty strange topic. Like, what do you mean by that? I'm going to explain it. So what what I've been noticing is like one of the biggest issues with a lot of people is just their inability to spend time alone. And I also personally really struggled with this issue. Personally, when I'm home alone, or it's better now, but back then a couple of years ago when I was home alone, it would kind of drive me insane because I would always want to hang out with people whenever I got the chance to. So whenever I would have an off day, or whenever there'd be a time where I tried to reach out to my friends and then they're busy, they're at work or doing what else, I wouldn't know what to do with my life because I'd just be sitting at home basically just on my phone watching shows and have like a very mild like depressive episode because it would just be so boring. Like, isolation is one of the worst things for my mental health specifically, because I like to have a balance between actually hanging out with people but at the same time spending time alone. And so when I fall into the more extreme side of just staying home all the time, it kind of drives me nuts. So that's probably why I'm very much like a workaholic. I'm always trying to stay busy, and that's obviously not a good thing. That's why I've been acknowledging it, because I'm trying to work on that slowly. But yes, I think it got really bad up during the quarantine days, March 2020 specifically, when we were all literally forced to stay at home and not see anybody for, I think it was like a month straight before they actually lifted it, and then we could go out with like masks on. But I'm sure y'all can remember specifically that time where it was announced that there was a lockdown order for all of us and we had to stay home and basically just preoccupy ourselves and hope that all the sickness and the numbers went down. That was a very scary time in my life because I just remember having so much anxiety, especially during the first week that this actually happened, and anxiety more specifically towards the idea that this is a very unpredictable, very uncontrollable thing, or it seems like it's out of our control. And it was very scary to kind of just like experience that, because this was a time where I had a very regular social routine with school, church, and work, and then I thought like the world was basically going to end, and I didn't have the chance to give everybody a proper goodbye like I wanted to, which sounds very funny looking back now, but now that I'm looking back at it, I remember that was literally my train of thought back then. Like my mind was kind of just spiraling out of control, and it was terrifying. And it was also the week where I gained a lot of weight because I also couldn't go to the gym, and then all the food that my parents were buying were just really unhealthy snacks, and so that was all I was left with. And for some reason I didn't bother cooking. I was just really lazy, just in a really bad rut, and yeah, I was just really unhealthy at that time. So it's kind of crazy that you don't really realize how important your seemingly mundane life is until that routine is taken away from you for a couple weeks, and that's exactly what happened to me. So it was a very I could say life-changing for this. Yeah, it was a pretty life-changing experience because it really, just shifted my perspective on how impermanent everything is, and like at an instant, like things could be taken away from us just like that. So every day I tried to start my days with like a lot of gratitude meditation and just thinking about my family, my friends, and although I can complain about it, I was actually missing like my daily routine whenever quarantine happened, and I never want to take that for granted again because it was terrible. It's a terrible experience. Anyways, I went off on a little tangent there. So the thing that I realized is I wasn't focusing on what I did have in front of me, which was my family, my friends, my family, my dogs, my hobbies. Instead, I was focusing on what I didn't have. And so as a result, I just became, I don't like to say the word depression, but I was very, very down because I was just so scared that I was going to lose my friends. Yeah, because anybody could have gotten sick and anybody could have died. And that's just me thinking very realistically because we don't know how bad COVID was for specific people. So overall, yes, I was on the brink of losing my sanity, but it was because I was trying so hard to control a situation that wasn't in my control. So I decided to change things around for my life and decided that I wanted to put my energy into something, to learning something new. And so as a result, I started to do things like cooking, started picking up reading again, started going back into my word and reading the Bible more, and just spending time with God, and like getting to hang out with my family, because my family pre-COVID was very much like doing their own things, and so it was such a sudden change in our family dynamic to just be stuck in the same space, because my parents work a lot, my older brother works a lot, my sister's in school, and because of like all these combinations, and I had a very busy schedule at the time too, so because we all kind of just split off, it was very weird to have that sudden connection where we're all just like in the same space together. So obviously I'm very grateful for how we were able to turn that around and form closer connections with each other and kind of just be comfortable with our space. It was great. It was a great experience. So the first point that I wanted to establish today is being alone allows you to confront anything that you're dealing with head on. And I mean this more so from like a distraction perspective. So whenever you're alone, you have to work on whatever it is that is on your schedule. And I'm speaking primarily from like a student's perspective. So in the past, some of the reasons why I would put things off, such as studying for a major exam, would be I wanted to go to work or hang out with people. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but when it becomes in substitution of what you actually should be doing that's really important and time sensitive, then it becomes an issue. And that's exactly what I was doing. So whenever COVID happened, the option to distract myself was taken away essentially, because I know, like, I was like a big time procrastinator. I knew I had to do, let's say like studying for the SAT, finishing up like a final project, but instead I chose to use that time to hang out with other people and so forth. So whenever you're spending time alone, you are forced to just stay with exactly what you had to do. And so as a result, you don't have any other option to distract yourself or cling on to. You just have to focus on what's in front of you. And that's exactly what happened to me, because during quarantine, I was like, yes, there was like online school happening at the same time, which was also another adjustment that I could probably talk about later on. But online learning allowed me to just be stuck in my room and only focus on my work. Like I couldn't study with other people, obviously, because you can't be in contact with them. So because of that, I was just stuck with my work, and then I got a lot of, not a lot of, but I got a really good workflow going on because I was basically isolated with just my work, and then I couldn't talk to anybody, which was like a new adjustment for me because I noticed that whenever I would sit down at my desk and then just finish my assignments, 30 minutes would go by, and then I would end up finishing like a ton of assignments. And the reason for that was because I didn't really look at my phone or anything like that. I put away distractions, and so because of that, I got a lot more work done in a very short amount of time, which was life-changing for me. And I was really happy with just the way things were going because of that. And this doesn't have to go just based off a school's perspective. So whenever you intentionally try to find time to spend alone, and you put that your time and energy into more valuable things, you can get a lot done with yourself. So for example, besides school, I always wanted to put on more muscle mass. Obviously I'm not like jacked, but before I was like skinny, like bone skinny, no fat, just abs, because I ran a lot. But I wanted to gain more muscle mass. And so what I decided to do with the time that I had spent alone was research all types of ways to increase your macro count. So counting how many grams of protein I get every day, focusing on hypertrophy, negatives, and kind of just researching different muscle groups and how to utilize it the best to form increasing amounts of muscle mass. And it sounds very nerdy and very technical, but because I took the time to invest into studying like all these different things, as a result, I physically benefited from it. And yes, it does seem pretty boring and mundane at that time, but that is like planting a seed essentially. And then when you're watching these videos and learning more about a specific hobby or a passion that you're interested in, you're basically watering that plant, and then you're going to see very slow, and I mean like very slow progress. But over the span of a few weeks, a few months, it's going to start growing as long as you're consistent and constantly feeding like whatever hobby or passion that you're interested in. So basically, to summarize this point, the best thing that I did for myself when it came to changing my study habits was making myself completely isolated while working on some type of assignment, or focusing on like learning a new song on the guitar or learning a new recipe. So basically what I would do is turn off my phone and go to a location where I know that I couldn't be disturbed. So moving forward from the whole COVID thing, what I do now whenever it comes to studying for a very important exam is I don't even study in school. I study at like a near coffee shop. I put some headphones in, I turn my phone off, and then put it like a 30-minute timer on there, and I just try to pump out as much work as possible. And I'm a big fan of the Pomodoro method. I hope that's the right word. I think it's the Pomodoro method, where you study for 30 minutes straight and then do a 5-minute break. Because I feel like if I study for too long, because I used to do like 2-hour study sessions straight, and then I found that was less productive than doing 30 minutes of studying and then taking 5-minute rests. And what I learned from this is that I am actually like a decent student if I'm able to put away the things that are distracting me. So I don't even really study with people anymore unless it's for like a very major exam and I already got some studying by myself. I only really study with people if I have specific questions about the curriculum or the class that we're studying for. And so basically what I want y'all to get from this is to be intentional with your time, because it is highly valuable. Yes, we do. I think there's this quote, was it Epictetus or Marcus Aurelius? I don't know. One of those philosophers, they're saying that we have a lot of time, but we waste a lot of it doing things that we really shouldn't be doing. So another note is for people that think that they are just doomed natural procrastinators at things and will never get things done, just try to cut out every single distraction that you know is eating up your time and distracting you from actually focusing on a specific task or a goal. And I'm very positive that you're going to get the work done. So basically what I want y'all to get from this point is that the best thing that you can do in terms of reaching your goals and focusing on a specific task is eliminating every distraction that is around you at that time. So a lot of y'all, including myself, may be wasting that valuable time doing things like just scrolling through our phone, watching a bunch of TV shows, when we know in the back of our mind that we should be doing something else. And the next point that I wanted to make for today's episode is alone time should be a necessary aspect of our daily routine. What I mean by that is always make it a priority throughout your day to do something that doesn't require a ton of social interaction. And for me, what I found I love doing, like I said earlier, is like reading and cooking. Those are very interesting hobbies of mine that I could constantly learn more about and improve on and hopefully master one day. But at the same time, it doesn't require me to just like constantly socially exert myself and talk to people in the process. So whenever you do these kinds of solitary hobbies, you are allowing yourself to socially recharge and reset and just become more balanced. That's a word that I like to use a lot, balance. So everyone, I believe, is designed to spend time with other people. I feel like social relationships are a necessary component to happiness, but we do have a limit. I like to compare ourselves to like iPhones where we do have a battery life, hence the name social battery. I'm sure you hear that everywhere. Everybody's designed to actually go out and talk to people, but at the same time, we do have a limit, we do have a cap, and what we do in order to recharge ourselves is so important. And a lot of people can get it wrong by, just like going through social media or drinking or things like that. Those aren't ways to recharge you, but you have to find healthier outlets in order for you to kind of just stay grounded and stay true to your authentic self. So incorporating the practice of isolation is one of the best things that I have done for my mental health, and I encourage each of y'all who are watching this video to try some type of hobby that doesn't require so much social interaction. And because of it, I find myself to be, like I said before, a lot more balanced, and I really value social interactions, and I find them a lot more satisfying, and I find myself to be more attentive, more present in the conversation because I do spend time like alone. So whenever you're able to find a balance between the two, you appreciate the other more. And I learned that like because I do all these like solitary hobbies, I don't find myself rushing to get out of a conversation whenever I'm talking to somebody, and because of that, it just makes the exchange just so much more valuable in my opinion. So on that note, I can't help but think about this one Key and Peele sketch. I think it's called Radio Hosts or something like that. But basically the point of it was there's these three people at the radio desk, and they're just kind of like goofing off really loud, really just super vocal and kind of just like talking nonsense like ha ha ha. And then I think they went on a commercial break, and then afterwards they're all just doing like their very solitary hobbies. So there's one girl that started just painting. There was, I think Key's character was like making a ship in a bottle, and then what's it, the bald guy, I always forget his name, I think it's Michael. He started like reading a book and like smoking a cigar. I thought these were very like exaggerated. This was a very exaggerated example of what I mean by finding a solitary hobby in the midst of a very busy life. And then afterwards, like once the radio came back on, they started like laughing and like just being really social again. That's a really good example of, or that's a good way to illustrate my point, is there has to be a balance between how social we are and also how comfortable are we in isolation. And so my last point to kind of bring everything full circle is don't be carried away with being alone. This was a very easy thing for me to do because naturally I'm pretty introverted, and so as a result I love spending time by myself, but it does become pretty excessive, and I start like neglecting just social interaction, human relationships, and as a result kind of just self-loathe, and at times like I'll just kind of be depressed, and I know I like should have people in my life, but sometimes I just think being alone is so much easier and doesn't require as much work, and which is really just negative, toxic thinking cycle that I go through at times, but something I'm actively working to change. So my philosophy essentially with life is balance is a necessary component to everything that happens to us. So if you're hanging out with friends 24/7, you constantly become hyper dependent upon them to make you happy, and it's not their responsibility to do that, but that kind of just creates this false impression within yourself that is, if I hang out with these people, then I'll be happy. And then the flip side of that is if you spend too much time alone, then you start to lack just like basic social cues, social skills, and makes you like unable to attain like genuine, long-lasting relationships, and it just causes you to slowly become unhappy with yourself. And I personally am guilty, yes, like I said earlier, of falling onto that side of spending too much time with myself. So I literally have to call myself out every time, and even on Sundays on my what's called the Notes app, I specifically put check in on friends, because if I don't, I'm just gonna keep living a life kind of solitary, like just going to the gym, going to work, going about my routine, and just forgetting to hang out with people. And I do value my friends a lot, and for some reason, it's so easy for me to just push them away whenever I have something that I should be focusing on, especially when it comes to school. I highly prioritize my schoolwork over them, which is a really bad thing to do, but hopefully I can reevaluate my priorities. So now for the fun part to end things off, I do have some challenges that I encourage y'all to try throughout the week if you're someone who is very highly dependent on hanging out with people for happiness and have never really spent time with yourself. So the first thing that would be advisable is for you to go to a restaurant or a cafe and dine in by yourself. Yes, you're gonna feel very anxious and you're gonna think that everybody's staring at you and judging you, when in reality they probably are not even paying attention to you or know you're there. But we often make ourselves suffer like in our imagination more than we're supposed to. I base that off a quote by Seneca, by the way. I think we suffer in imagination more than reality is how the actual quote goes. But yes, whenever you're able to dine in at a restaurant just by yourself, you become way more confident in your own skin and just focusing on the present and not being hyper fixated on what people are thinking of you, because you just become so confident in yourself and you don't care what other people think. So if you continually do that on a regular basis, you're going to be able to just like build pretty good self-esteem, and you're not going to be as insecure. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I have done that myself a couple times. Like I'll go to a coffee shop or I'll even go shopping by myself. Don't self-pity me because I chose to do that. I'm not saying like I have no friends or anything, but what I am saying is whenever you're able to kind of adventure off into doing your own personal experiences, then it makes it easier to just be more comfortable by yourself. And I feel like that's just a very necessary life skill to have. And another thing with this practice is that when you're able to do this more regularly, you're going to have a higher appreciation of the time that you are able to hang out with your friends or your family. And that's basically all I wanted to talk about today. I'm happy to share like all this information with you guys because yes, being alone can suck, but also don't hang out with people too much is kind of a rundown of what I talked about today. I was probably really repetitive, but it's okay. Still learning how to do this. So I also apologize for the very ghetto setup. I remember saying that I was supposed to have a guest on prior to this episode, but I don't have one because I don't have two mics. But I'm not going to give a timeline on when it's going to happen because I might be wrong. Anyways, I just encourage everybody who's watching this to find a good balance between spending time with other people, but at the same time being alone, because too much of one side is toxic and unhealthy. So find your balance, people. And yeah, if you have any other topics that y'all want me to cover in a future episode, just let me in the comments. I'd be happy to take that into consideration in a future episode. Anyways, I had a really fun time talking about this, guys. It is very hot in here. Like, it literally feels like it's 80 degrees in my room because I'm sitting next to a window and it has not gotten cooler. It's actually gotten hotter and I'm so shiny now. Anyways, I am very busy this week, so there's a good chance I might not have an episode next week, but I will see about that and make it a priority to release these episodes every single Wednesday is what I'm shooting for. Keep me accountable, guys, because I might put that off and procrastinate. But anyways, I hope y'all have an amazing day. Again, thank y'all so much for tuning into this episode. I really appreciate any viewership that y'all add to this. I'm not shooting for big numbers here. I just, hope that I'm not speaking to nobody. So anyways, I've talked too much. Hope y'all have an amazing day wherever y'all are watching from, and hope to see you tune in for a future episode. Have a lovely day, y'all. Goodbye.